Good morning. It's Sunday, February 16th, 2025. Just after the 7 o'clock hour, I'm James Brierton with you in Charlotte. We're tracking a line of severe thunderstorms, bringing a severe weather threat to the Carolinas, the same line of storms that did bring damaging severe weather to other parts of the South as we look back over the last 24 hours. Let's get you right on over to radar. Right now, you can see in that yellow polygon, we do have a severe thunderstorm warning that extends down into Georgia and then back up into South Carolina. This is going to include a portion of I-26, going to be approaching the Columbia area here in the next few minutes. And as you can see, we have a squall line that goes right across portions of the South. We'll show you where it is in North Carolina in just a moment. But right now, the only severe weather warning that we have in the Carolinas is between Augusta and the I-26 corridor coming into Columbia and the I-20 corridor between Augusta and, say, Columbia. Now, this severe thunderstorm warning is likely to be extended. It was issued by the National Weather Service in Columbia for the possibility of 60-mile-per-hour winds and a tornado possible. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get a lot of these tornado possible tags associated with our severe thunderstorm warnings today. These storms just do have a history of spinning up. That's what we saw a lot of yesterday. This storm system also has a huge history of creating a flood risk, and we'll show you that in a moment as well, too. If we take this on up here to the north, you're going to see me doing a lot of toggling between two different radars as we get started here this morning, because the beauty of the way this software works is while I do have to toggle between radars, that does allow me to get faster and more real-time imagery. So where I am right now here in Charlotte, and a lot of you guys probably watching along the I-70 corridor, we don't have any warnings per se. We do have a special weather statement out, which really just kind of signifies to us that the National Weather Service is certainly keeping a close eye on this. About to get very heavy rain in uptown Charlotte, and we can actually show that to you thanks to our great network of WeatherStem cameras. So if I were to switch our live view outside over to uptown Charlotte, you can see right now we're facing off to the east, and the line of storms is approaching back from the west. But remember this image, because when we come back to it in a few minutes, it's going to look very, very different as we continue to keep an eye on the storms. If you're watching from the Triad, this line of storms is coming your way here in the next little bit. Again, not as strong further north we are right now, but as the sunshine starts to peek on out this morning, we are going to watch for the possibility that this line of storms re-intensifies a bit. And that is why the National Weather Service has issued the Storm Prediction Center outlook for today that has most of us in a tier 1 marginal risk. That's the dark green that's on the screen. That's most of the Carolinas. And you can see that once we get to right about where we are now and off to the east, that's where that tier 1 kicks in. During the overnight hours, we certainly got a lot of heavy rain. We'll be looking into those storm reports over portions of western North Carolina. But as we get a little bit closer to daybreak and that sun comes back on out, that's when we could see, again, that chance of seeing some severe weather. So what forms of severe weather are we looking for? It's possible we could get an isolated tornado, about 2% chance in the areas highlighted on your screen right now. So in North Carolina, that includes the kind of the northeast quadrant of the state: Durham, Raleigh, Elizabeth City, Greenville, Cape Hatteras, Kitty Hawk. And then you can also see then down towards South Carolina, the closer you get to, say, Savannah or Augusta, such as maybe, say, Hilton Head area or Beaufort, we do have that 2% chance of tornado. Could we see a tornado someplace else? Certainly. But those are the areas that it's most likely to occur. And it's just at a 2% today. That's kind of our first tier into the possibility of seeing severe weather. What about winds? Now, that's more likely what we're going to see, because that's kind of a swath across that same area where we have the marginal, a 5 to 15% chance of seeing damaging winds of at least 60 miles per hour or greater. Again, the further south you get, closer to Savannah, closer to Georgia, you can see that up between 15 and 20%. Most likely going to be seeing some heavy rain today, seeing some gusty winds. We're not expecting to see a whole lot in terms of tornadoes. That's good news, because they certainly had a tornado outbreak and a flash flooding emergency outbreak, again, over the last 36 hours from Virginia off through Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Virginia, and West Virginia, not to be excluded. This is today's outlook for excessive flash flooding. You can see this is pretty good because we were a little concerned that the flash flooding threat could be higher than it is. And like I said, we'll check in with some of those storm reports back off to our west in a few minutes. But the good news as we come on the air this morning is we don't have anything in terms of flash flood warnings because, given how the status of Western North Carolina after Helene and so many temporary bridges and things out there, was certainly worried that we were going to come on the air this morning to see some sort of flooding problem there associated with this. And I'm sure those creeks and streams are high, but the good news is there's no flash flood warnings. We told you that Charlotte camera was going to start to pick up activity a little bit as we head on through the morning hours, and it already is living up to that. You can start to see the rain coming down in uptown Charlotte. I'm in South Charlotte. I actually got the window open because when I got down here this morning, it was actually colder inside than it is outside, and that's just because the nature of this front coming on through is eating up a lot of this warmer air that's just kind of been hanging out here and fueling it at the surface. But let's take you back over to, we'll come back to Charlotte here in just a moment. I thought we had some cameras in Augusta. I might have to pull those up manually. I'm not seeing them in my list. But let's show you what we are seeing on radar matching this particular picture, because where I am, again, I can hear those winds starting to kick on up. And so that camera you were looking at was right on in here in uptown Charlotte. Again, we don't have any warnings, but that's where certainly Bank of America Stadium is. If you've been here for a Panthers game, and so we can see right now that this shift is taking place. I guess it's probably worth mentioning that once this line comes through, that warm, humid air I was just telling you about, that is going to be a paradigm shift because it is going to usher in colder weather that is going to then be with us for the rest of the week, including the possibility of seeing wintry weather later on in the week. I'm not going to get too deep into that right now because let's deal with what's in front of us before we worry about what might be coming later. But that is certainly something that is on our mind. By midweek, we could be dealing with wintry weather as part of this shift that is already taking place here this morning. So right now we're looking at velocity, just to give you an idea what some of the winds are near that camera we were just looking at. And again, it's about 30 miles an hour. We down towards where I am. We are seeing some higher gusts. Again, we need that 60 mile per hour threshold in order to get that National Weather Service warning to come on out. And we're not quite there. But all right, let's take you back down to where we do have the warning. This is in South Carolina. And again, we're still looking at winds here. And that will, again, help us understand where the bulk of this thread is, because it's really in that wind form. A little lightning, I think, on the Charlotte camera there. It's funny, I had actually asked it to switch over to Columbia, and it didn't. But it allowed us to see what I think was a lightning strike. So thanks, computer. Thanks for not listening to me. Let's take you to Columbia. And again, you can see the gloomy skies out ahead of this front arriving in the next few minutes. We're looking at the winds here. And again, we are going to dissect some of these winds. We just got the latest radar scan in, which allows us to see exactly where the winds are as close to real time as possible. And again, we are sitting right at that 60, 65. Let's check out these, because these are going to be that blue area is going to be closer to about 76 miles an hour. Now that's interesting, because if that is actually reaching the ground, that would be enough to kind of move this into the next tier, severe thunderstorm warning, if you would. There's actually tiers of severe thunderstorm warnings, and kind of they start at 60, and then if you think about 70 and 80, that gets us to each of the subsequent tiers. So if we kind of just query where we're at right now with this warning, I think we're still at the first basic tier. We are. And that just could be because the way the radar works from Columbia, by the time it gets up towards Saluda, it's about 4,000 feet up in the air. And the Weather Service will certainly upgrade this warning if they have any evidence that that is necessary. One of the things I'm watching closely right here, because we talked about the possibility of whether or not we could see tornadoes, they would be right out along the edge of this line. And so when we say this line, when we're looking in the wind view, it's right on in here. This is that leading edge of the storm. This is also where the precipitation is. And so kind of we're going to get little kinks and things. And if they were spin up and rotate, they'd be kind of right on where I've just circled on your screen. So kind of heads up Lake Murray, that area right now. We don't have a tornado warning per se, but we're going to keep a close eye on that. And you can also see as I switched back over to rain view, again, we're watching, you kind of see where it goes bink in, and then around, and then bink again, and then bink again. I wouldn't be surprised if we put these two pictures side by side. I've got rain on the left, wind on the right. This guy right on in here and this guy right on in here are kind of all associated with where I'm seeing some of that heavier rain right now. And I'm seeing some kinks in the line, and then seeing with the heavier winds. That's where, if we were to get any sort of tornado development, it possibly would take place, would be kind of like right on in that area. So we're going to keep a very close eye on that because, like I said, again, if we were to see something, that's possibly where we are going to see it. So stay tuned on that again. Don't know right now that there's any immediate threat, but if we were to get any sort of spin up or something, it would probably be relatively quick. We do have the way here at the Carolina Weather Group to chat with the National Weather Service, so I'll make sure we're logged into our Columbia chat so that if and when they were to issue something, we can be sure that we are seeing it. And so they are certainly keeping a close eye on this right now. The strongest part of the coming through Saluda and Newberry counties, approaching Lake Murray, as we talked about, based on radar, most likely seeing winds in excess of 60 miles an hour. So they're saying we're at least at that base level. And again, not too surprising considering what we were just seeing on radar a few minutes ago. The other thing I can do, if you bear with me, as we look at where we are on radar, and I think we're just going to leave it on velocity on the wind view for now, because watching carefully for some of these things to possibly spin up as we come towards I-26 is once we get back on over towards the interstates, and they're right on in here in blue. Here's I-26, here's I-20, if and when we kind of get down towards that area. South Carolina does have a whole network of traffic cameras that we can kind of peer in and see what's happening down on the surface. And so that would be certainly something to keep a very close eye on as we go on throughout the day, because it gives us ground truth. Love radar to death, but sometimes you just need to know what the heck's happening on the ground. So those cameras from Little Mountain, Chapin, again through Lake Murray, also down towards the Lexington area, as we get closer to Columbia, will provide us a little bit of ground truth. So I can actually probably start to pull some of those up right now. And I will screen share that with you for just a moment, because if you look carefully on radar, again, I'm kind of being drawn right on in here, the possibility that maybe something starts to rotate. I'm stepping away to close the window, because that's where I am in South Charlotte. The rain is starting to pick up, and as much as I was enjoying humid yet warmer weather, I don't want to get wet. So we're going to watch as this pushes off towards the east here, whether or not that were to get any, say, tornado warning or something associated with it. But the line right now is coming through Little Mountain and into Chapman. And so if I were to just pull up some of our traffic cameras for a moment, we can get an idea maybe, because I think some of our furthermost cameras are right on in here, and we'll just take a quick little gander. Certainly some very wet roadway conditions right now. That's not all too surprising when you consider how much rain is coming down with some of this. And so Why do I feel like that picture is showing up blank for you guys? Let's see. Those normally play video. Okay, there we go. We got some video now. Good to see the roads fairly empty on this Sunday morning. Certainly would have been a little bit different of a story if it had been rush hour. I do feel like some of these cameras for you guys are going to black. I don't understand that why. See, just look how wet the ground is. Ground is so wet that it's not going to take much if we were to get into any sort of flooding scenario. Just kind of see it there off to the side, just how wet it is. And also visibility. So if you don't have to travel immediately this morning, certainly would recommend just maybe hanging out at home and not traveling imminently as we're keeping an eye on this. Because you can see just how wet some of those roads are out there. And is there something in the road? Maybe it's not in the road. It definitely looked like there was a sign or something back there that I thought maybe had blown in, but be part of a construction zone or something. But certainly as the winds pick here in the next few minutes, we'll have to watch for the possibility of it around a bit. So I think we'll widen this back out. I'm not seeing anything right now on cameras that is immediately drawing my attention, but we'll keep a close eye on things. We do have this beautiful network of weather stem cameras throughout the region, and this does allow us to really get a great view of a lot of things that are happening, and we will certainly be using those a lot this morning because that will allow us to see in real time a lot of really good vantage points. And those things also come equipped with weather stations on them. So by using those, we can also get weather data, and that is just crucial to have at our fingertips. Widening our radar view back out just to make sure we don't get kind of blinders on and stuck staring at one area too much. We do have that severe thunderstorm warning going all the way back down towards Augusta, kind of just now clearing the outer loop here, 520, as the storm probably picking up a good bit in Aiken. And we do have a weather stem camera in Aiken that I know I can definitely take you out to. And now it seems like as good of a time as any to do exactly that, so that we can show you kind of what this line looks like and exactly how fast this is moving. I mean, the good news is if you've got plans later on today, this line is moving pretty quickly as it comes on through the area. But when it does, it's certainly going to act exactly as a front does. It's going to be a transition for us from into some colder weather. And so if I can find our SETV Aiken camera. It's not showing up on my dashboard, but I know it exists because I've seen it all night long on our Carolina WeatherNet. And so let's get that up on the screen here for you, and you can see what conditions are like right now in Aiken, because I think they're going to maybe changing a bit as the next few moments unfold. So we'll switch that screen share on over from the traffic cameras on over to weather stem camera in Aiken. And there it is. So again, I think in the next few minutes, the picture here will change. And we'll start to see some heavier storms rolling on through. All right. So we do that as we wait. You guys have a preference kind of how we display things? I'll check comments here. Power flashes coming in South Carolina. Guess that's to be expected. Anne's watching for kind of where I am in Charlotte. She says it's coming down pretty hard. She did just get thunder, so that does correlate with what we thought at one point was a lightning strike on our weather stem camera there at Bank of America Stadium. So thank you for that report, Anne, because it certainly looked like a lightning strike out of the corner of my eye, and it certainly seems to have been. Let's see. Very windy in Columbia, Brian says. The squall line has not even yet come on through. You know, Brian, that's a great point. So let's find out exactly what the winds are right now in Columbia, because we have a couple questions about wind. And so we have, again, this camera. I want to go to this camera. This is the WeatherStem camera, powered by South Carolina Educational Television at William Bryce Stadium there in Columbia. Sustained winds right now, south-southwest at 13 miles an hour, gusting up to 33 miles an hour. So that is certainly gusty. And then again, we also have the SCTV camera in partnership with WeatherStem over in Aiken, 11 mile per hour winds out of the north, 43 mile per hour gusts, 43 mile per hour gusts. And you'll notice Aiken's got winds out of the north. Columbia's got winds out of the south-southwest. The temperature in Columbia right now, that southerly flow, 66 degrees in Columbia right now. The temperature in Aiken, as the winds shift out to the north and that cold front with the rain comes on through, still reading 66 degrees, but probably not for very much longer. We'll certainly see that kind of transition here. It got warmer during the overnight hours. If you were up, it certainly did get warmer as things came on too. A couple questions. What weather app for your area? What weather app can you use? The weather app we're using for radar, this is Radar Scope. If you're looking for a way to get alerts on your phone, is that the question? There are a variety out there. And I frankly just use a NOAA weather radio because it doesn't require my phone. So that tends to be what we use here at the house. A lot of TV stations will have weather apps that will send alerts and things. So we don't have any tornado warnings right now. We are watching for the possibility. We do have an extension of that severe thunderstorm warning. And as we mentioned, this now has been extended to go further to the east. As we expected, it is now including the Columbia metro area and as far south as St. Matthews, as far to the north. Let's see, we cleared Winnsboro. We're almost all the way up to Great Falls and Kershaw. And all the way to the east gets us to Bishopville, McBee, not quite into Hartsville just yet. But again, this line is going to be coming through the Carolinas as we go through the overnight hours. So expect for it to just kind of get extended out as we go through. The heavy rain right now is falling in Aiken, South Carolina. This is a live look at our WeatherStem camera in partnership with SCETV. And it is coming down right now in Aiken, South Carolina. I think some of that flashing you are seeing is probably the camera trying to get its focus. I don't think that's necessarily like an endless string of lightning strikes or anything like that. But you can see, again, the visibility decreasing as that line comes on through. And we'll be watching as it gets closer to Columbia. We do now have an extension of the warning into North Carolina. And so this now has been extended as a severe thunderstorm warning into the Triad. So that would include Winston-Salem, High Point, Greensboro, as far north as Stockdale? I should know. Dan Whitaker lives there. And Rural Hill, as far off to the east as Burlington, and as far to the south as kind of pushing into the Charlotte metro area, Albemarle, and this is going to be like Stanley County. It's coming down where I am right now in South Charlotte. I can briefly take you outside. We don't have a warning where I am here in Charlotte, which is kind of interesting because the line to my north has a warning. The line to my south has a warning. But we don't have any sort of warning where I am here in South Charlotte near Matthews, but I can now hear the rain coming down outside of where I am. And let's see if that picture wants to load. It does not. It does not want to load. That's okay. That's okay. You could just believe me when I say the rain's coming down, because I can hear it. Is this something I can easily resolve? If not, we're going to keep on moving, because we got plenty of other things to worry about. We'll show you what's happening right now. Again, back out in Aiken. And we kind of, the way the line is oriented, it is now kind of slanted a bit so that we've got some of the heaviest rain coming into the Triad, Charlotte, Columbia, and Aiken all at the same time. All at the same time. So that warning that just came out for the Triad in North Carolina, this is for the threat of 3/4 size hail and 60-mile-per-hour winds. This particular warning will go into 8:15, and then again, they're likely to slide it on off to the east. And so we'll watch for potential of gusty winds and hail associated with this. And as we're kind of querying the line here, watching for any sort of possible rotation, nothing immediately jumps out to me with this North Carolina severe thunderstorm warning with regards to tornadoes. We are watching again for damaging wind. They did say 3/4 size hail, which is interesting. I'm not seeing anything immediately in terms of like big hail, but yeah, we could see some hail right now, maybe Winston-Salem, down towards Lexington, down towards Salisbury. I did get the camera working here where I am in South Charlotte, so we'll take you outside. This is right outside where I am here, and you can see certainly not only are skies dark and the rain's coming down, you can probably see those trees dancing around there a little bit as winds are certainly gusting on through. We do have a Tempest weather station here where I am in South Charlotte, and so I can pull that up and let you know exactly what the winds are doing right now, because it's going to get real gusty for a lot of people as this comes on through. So right now we're at 62 degrees where I am. And is that a change? Can we detect a change? Not yet, but I can tell you, looking back at the temperature sensor overnight, after about 3 a.m., we actually climbed from 40 degrees to 60 degrees. And that is now expected to kind of drop as the front comes on through with all of this rain. So it says I'm gusting up to 12 miles per hour right now. And so we'll certainly keep a close eye on that. Back out to radar, I can show you a little bit where we are in the Charlotte area. We'll take it then back down into South Carolina. But this is kind of the leading edge right now coming into Monroe to the south and the east of Charlotte. Again, there's no warning for the Charlotte area. It is below the severe threshold. So it's below 60 mile per hour winds, below quarter size hail. But I bet you it increases with intensity as you make your way back down towards the Columbia area, because that is where the yellow polygons, the severe thunderstorm warnings, pick back up. And so you can see right now we are still getting some lightning strikes coming back over near Lake Murray. That is where we were watching for the possibility of maybe a quick little spin up. And we're watching areas on the radar velocity where the greens and the reds come on together, where we have green and the red really close together. We have little kinks in the line. There's certainly a boundary, right, where the front's coming on through. And if it's kind of a flat line, that's not too concerning for us. But we're going to watch for the possibility that any of this could quickly rotate on up. Again, no tornado warnings right now to speak of, but something we're keeping a very close eye on, because it's certainly possible with the storm. If nonetheless, of course, the damaging winds. Wind is wind. So whether it's rotating in the form of a tornado, or if it's coming at you in like a wall, kind of like it is today, that is certainly something that you need to take just as seriously. So if you're inside one of these yellow polygons for severe thunderstorm warnings, head inside, stay inside until the line is passed, because 60, 65, 70 mile per hour winds is going to throw things around, whether it's rotating as a tornado or coming at you kind of as a wall. Augusta, you're now cleared out of the warning. Plenty of rain still falling back where you are. But again, we've been watching carefully the Aiken camera, where you can see the line of storms is coming on through. The severe thunderstorm warning extends all the way off to now Orangeburg in the east. So it's starting to include portions of I-26 coming out of Columbia, making your way down towards Charleston. So not a great morning to be on the road. I haven't mentioned this yet, but we do have other lines on the screen. Those blue lines right here, this is just kind of honing in for us. That's a mesoscale discussion of where some of the significant weather is going to be in the hours ahead. So they probably drew that, I don't know, 5 a.m., 4:52 a.m. Central Time. I was close-ish. And so that's kind of what those are about. I'm going to leave this on the screen here for a moment. I'm going to change our camera back on over to Columbia, where that severe thunderstorm warning is in effect right now. And then I'm also going to check in with the National Weather Service office to see exactly what they might be keeping an eye on. And I know I have the Columbia camera. It's just not alphabetized correctly. What is alphabet? Is that important? I'm not sure. And so that should be appearing here momentarily. Clear that Charlotte camera out. There it is. You can certainly see in the next few moments there, the SETV camera from William Bryce Stadium will be looking a tad differently. I just remembered to pour myself coffee, and I've been talking for half an hour straight, and I haven't had any of it. That was thunder here in Charlotte. That was certainly thunder. I know a lot of you guys are talking about power flashes and things, and we'll see if I'm next. Certainly could be. Certainly could be. What I'm doing here is I'm just clearing out a lot of my messages so that as new messages come in, they're a little bit more clear to me that they have arrived. That would certainly be helpful. A lot of you guys watching this morning, maybe the thunder is waking you up. So appreciate you being with us. And this line of storms, I'll show you on Futurecast in just a moment, is going to be with us as we go on through the rest of the day. Matter of fact, we can actually show you there's a severe thunderstorm watch out for a good chunk of the Carolinas, and that will kind of paint a picture for you on where they think this line is going to be going. Spoiler alert, it's going to go off to the east as it rides out a cold front. So let's show you a little bit of where that watch is in effect right now. If I can find it buried under so much of everything else that's going on. Actually, interesting enough, the watch, this is interesting. The watch is actually almost only for Charleston and say Hilton Head back down towards the Savannah area. That's I was expecting that if they did a watch, it was going to be bigger than that, but they didn't ask me. Let me get it on the screen here for you. There it is. So the watch is in pink. The warnings are in orange. So that's a watch means that a particular form of severe weather, in this case, thunderstorms are possible as we go on through the evening hours, and the warnings mean that that type of severe weather is happening right now, and so that's not terribly surprising to see that we do have a watch out. Again, I was kind of thinking that if we did get a watch, it would be for a bigger area than that, but there's logic to this because it kind of associates with where the Storm Prediction Center has its outlook in place. So most of the Carolinas is in a tier 1 marginal risk of seeing severe weather. And so that kind of means that as you get towards that stage 2, that slight risk, which is yellow, that's where they expect a little bit more activity. So that's a little bit closer to where the watch box is. This is the threat of seeing a tornado today. A lot of us have a near zero chance, but we have a 2% chance in northeast quadrant of North Carolina. And again, a 2% chance as you make your way down towards Georgia. There is, as you can see, a sliver of South Carolina included in that. This is the severe wind threat. And you can see all of us have a severe wind threat between 5 and 15 miles an hour at this hour. And by all of us, I mean everyone who hasn't yet seen the front. So you can see that in western North Carolina, you've already seen this cold front come on through with storms. So the threat is now back off to the east a little bit higher as you get your way towards Georgia. It's so interesting to me that that storm for the Triad area had a chance of seeing 3/4 size hail, which is like bigger hail than usual, because the severe weather outlook for hail is like almost null and void today. So I'm confused by that. But again, it is what it is. All right. So looking back over here at radar, the National Weather Service in Columbia tells us in Richland County, South Carolina, they've got wind gusts up to 58 miles an hour. And so they're watching with this line of storms, again, that damaging wind threat. Matter of fact, we can see things already kind of blowing around right now thanks to this MPing report in Columbia. And so our Columbia camera is right on in here. And so in the next few moments, we're going to watch for conditions to change at William Bryce Stadium. 67 degrees. We've gone up a degree in Columbia since the last time we checked this, thanks to our friends at WeatherStem. Winds right now out of the east. So that's a change in direction. They're coming out of the east now at 3 miles an hour, gusting up to 30. Because, again, we were out of the south. That allowed us to get some of that warm, moist air from the south. Right now, it's transitioning as that cold front comes on through, and then the winds will change direction, and we'll eventually start getting colder air coming back in from the north. But you can kind of see a little bit of what's going on there as this switches in the next few moments or so. It's been a moment since we quarried the winds, and I want to kind of see if there's any sort of potential for spin up again. Non-zero chance of seeing a tornado. There are a couple areas on here that kind of grab my eye. Nothing too dire, but we'll watch, as I know the Weather Service is watching right now, for the potential of a quick spin up. So the heaviest rain right now coming into Columbia, coming through Irmo, St. Andrews, Red Bank, and it's going to be in downtown Columbia in the next few minutes. It's raining real hard right now. If you are over in Blythewood, Ridgewood, it's kind of just ended where you are in Winsboro. But this now extends. Oh, this is new. Okay, so we do now have a new severe thunderstorm warning as we follow the line up to the north. The National Weather Service has added one for Chesterfield County. Again, 3/4 size inch hail, 60 mile per hour winds with a tornado possible. This is Heath Springs, Pageland, Jefferson, Patrick, Sherrod, and Chesterfield. It's so interesting that you can see the warnings are up on the screen right now, and those are in yellow. And we kind of have a near continuous line of warnings. Let's just for a moment get some of this other stuff off the screen. As much as I love the storm reports, I just want to show you for a moment. You can see from Greensboro, and then we've got a gap, and then we're into South Carolina. But in South Carolina, we do have a continuous line of severe thunderstorm warnings that go from the border with Georgia all the way up to the state line with North Carolina, call it 140 miles an hour. That line does continue further south because this is not just a Carolina event. You can see right now into portions of Georgia and into portions of Florida. We have a nearly continuous line of severe thunderstorm warnings that if you go from the Gulf Coast, short of that little gap outside of Charlotte and Monroe County, Union County, where the city of Monroe is in North Carolina, we have almost 550-mile line of storms as it comes on through. You can see, again, that this system has been bringing lots of heavy rain. That green polygon on your screen right now, those are flash flood warnings. We likely don't have any of those to deal with, but it certainly was putting on historic flooding over the course of the last 24, 36 hours over portions of the south. So I told you we're continuing to get some lightning and thunder in this gap where I am, and I can hear it, I can see it, and I can see it on the map. And so the warning's not there. Certainly a good time to be hunkered down inside. We are also getting lightning and thunder right now reported in the Triad over towards Greensboro. And so that line is flying through Winston-Salem, High Point, and Greensboro. And so we can pull up an additional camera. We're going to go ahead probably and retire the Aiken camera this morning. I'm not sure we're going to need that any longer. The temperature in Aiken now is down to 64. So again, that'll actually fall a little bit here as this line kind of comes on through the area. Again, we had kind of a rapid rise in temperature of almost 20 degrees during the overnight hours. And now as the line is coming on, it's eating up a lot of that energy and ushering in a change to the day. But in Greensboro right now, it's 58 degrees, winds out of the southwest at about 9, gusting up to 20. We're continuing to look at cameras from our WeatherStem network. These are just fabulous cameras, and they have a number of cameras in this area. And I want to say there's one in Thomasville where the line has just come through. So let's see if we go and check out Thomasville right now. Yeah, Windy Creek Golf Course has got a camera for us. And so if we go and get that on the screen, we'll be able to see kind of what we're seeing on radar. Perfect, here it is. So this is Windy Creek Golf Course in Thomasville, North Carolina, courtesy of WeatherStem. You can kind of see just how wet the ground is. The line has come on through here. So we're going to try to find another camera a little bit closer to the line here in just a second. You can see kind of what it looks like there on the ground. The camera that I was looking for in Greensboro in particular was the Guilford County Emergency Management, because they are off to the west side of town. That's what's on your screen right now. And they are kind of in the thick of it. And so that's why I was thinking this camera would be the best to pull on up, because you can kind of see the way the camera is bouncing around there at the Guilford County Emergency Management Office here in North Carolina. 59 degrees, southeast winds at 11, gusting up to 35 miles an hour. And we'll expect that to climb because they are kind of coming right on in to the thick of this storm right now. And let's see the best way to maybe put some of this on the screen for you. It might be something like that. And something like that. So we can kind of keep an eye on everything simultaneously. And we will watch as this weather rolls on through here. So the camera bouncing around. Top left side of your screen, WeatherStem in Greensboro. Bottom left is WeatherStem in Columbia. You can see on radar right now kind of where this line is. And this camera is kind of right on in where the thick of this is coming on through. And that's why I think you're seeing the camera bouncing around. And I'm sure getting plenty of lightning, gusting now up to 35 miles an hour in Greensboro. Closest lightning to this station was just over 4.5 miles away, just some 46 seconds ago. And we've had quite frequent lightning being reported over the course of the last half an hour or so. You can see those on your screen right now. This is in the Greensboro area. We have had a lightning strike almost every minute of the last few minutes, if you include both ground strikes and cloud to cloud. So quite a bit of energy with this system as it rolls on through. We'll take you back out to that outside view right now as we continue to keep an eye on things here. The tornado threat does luckily remain pretty low. The limiting level there for the tornadoes is just limiting instability, especially since so many of us spent the last 24 hours in the wedge. It's not like we were cooking. So that's kind of good news. But we have a lot of things to be thankful for, and that's probably one of them this morning. The other thing we were thankful for is we're not getting a lot of the flash flooding that they saw elsewhere across the region, across the South. Like historic emergency level flash flooding outside the Carolinas has been occurring, and so pretty grateful to not be in that boat. Gonna just kind of watch as this rolls on through. Look at a couple comments that you guys got coming in. Raining pretty good at Hunting Island. Just looked at the rail cam in Thomasville. Yep, rail cam there along with WeatherStem. So certainly that's kind of where the line is right now. Thomasville, probably 40 to 50 mile per hour winds here, lightning and thunder and heavy rain in Thomasville, Big Al's small engine. And we're watching that camera in the top left right now. I'll make it full screen for you. This is Greensboro from WeatherStem. We're looking from the Guilford County Emergency Management on the west side of town. Realizing I may have said east earlier. This is on the west side of town. Bouncing around there pretty good as this line comes on through. I also just wanted to quickly mention that we have had an extension now. They kind of filled in the gap we were talking about. So the severe thunderstorm warnings now extend continuously from Greensboro through that gap in North Carolina. That would include, say, Hamlet, Rockingham, Wadesboro, Biscoe, the 2B corridor of Interstate 73, 74. It's kind of been filled in the middle of the state there all the way over to Southern Pines and Pinehurst. So now 550 miles of continuous severe thunderstorm warnings starting in Greensboro, North Carolina, continuing through South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. But you can kind of see we now have that continuous line. Why did they change it? Did the storm intensify? Certainly. Did the storm change hands? Also true. We are now leaving one set of Weather Service offices for another. We're also getting into a bit of a radar hole, and sometimes it's just easier to be safe rather than sorry as we kind of get into the middle of the state of North Carolina, where frankly, you don't have great radar coverage, myself included in Charlotte. So it is what it is. But we do expect this line to grow in strength a little bit as we head on off to the east, just because as we start to get sunrise, we talked about at about 4 a.m. how the weather was getting warmer. And so that is only going to be more true the further east you are, where that period of time has more time to kind of incubate. In Raleigh right now, it's 63 degrees. 63 degrees, winds out of the south still. So we got plenty of that warm, moist air coming through. Winds gusting there almost up to 20. And so we'll watch kind of that will cook a little bit more. And so as this line continues to move off to the east, it will have a little bit more fuel to work with as it gets to the east. Again, not like a big severe weather outbreak by any means. It's still a marginal threat, 1 out of 5 as we head on through the afternoon hours. But again, we do kind of expect it to be a little bit higher as we get on off to the eastern portion of the Carolinas. I can tell you it's already much quieter here in South Charlotte. You're looking live right now back over to Greensboro, where this line is coming on through. Matter of fact, the line is probably past this camera where we are in Greensboro. And so that was the Guilford County Emergency Management Office on the west side of town. And we can get a little bit more kind of like centralized downtown area if we use the camera from the University of North Carolina at Greensboro as part of the WeatherStem network. And so that's what I've now switched this on over to. You can kind of see the skyline a little bit better here in Greensboro this morning on this Sunday, where, of course, there's lots of heavy rain associated with this storm system. We do have a line of severe thunderstorm warnings. It's 59 degrees now, which is just a notch below 60 degrees at the UNC Greensboro WeatherStem station, where the winds are coming in out of the west at 16 miles an hour, gusting up to 24. Still seeing lots of lightning right now across the greater Greensboro area. Okay, Greensboro, we love you. Been talking about you for what feels probably like a really long period of time. So let's go back out to radar and kind of give people the lay of the land here as we come up on 8 o'clock on the Sunday morning. I'm James Brierton in Charlotte. We're tracking a line of severe thunderstorms that I got to tell you are moving way faster than I thought they were going to. When I went to bed last night, which mind you was like midnight, we thought this line wasn't going to be to Charlotte for another hour or so. It's already past Charlotte. It's in Greensboro right now. It's coming up on Raleigh. And we have nearly a continuous line of severe thunderstorm warnings across the whole Carolinas. We have like one county up here as you make your way into like Danville that is not in the severe thunderstorm warning. But I mean, hey, you're about to get a pretty good line of storms rolling on through. Asheboro, if you're near the North Carolina Zoo, this is coming up on you here in the next few minutes. You can see fresh lightning strikes. And so this line of yellow polygons indicates areas where wind threat is at least 60 miles per hour and the hail threat is at least quarter size. Some of these will be greater. So starting with our first severe thunderstorm warning right now for the Triad, this would be for 3/4 inch size hail and 60 mile per hour winds, probably similar as we make our way into the central part of the state. Severe thunderstorm warning there for the same conditions as we go on through the next hour or so. And again, I just expect these warnings to slide off to the east. So although you're not in a warning right now, Durham, Raleigh, and Fayetteville, it's coming your way in the next hour, 2 hours or so. Switching on over to our South Carolina view right now, we have a continuous line of severe thunderstorm warnings that are coming through Chesterfield County, coming into the Columbia metro area. This is going to be coming into Newberry and Lugoff here in the next few minutes, all along that I-20 corridor. Elgin would also be part of that, Camden, McBee. So we'll keep a close eye on that. The good news is it's moving out of places like Lake Murray, moving out of places like Winnsboro and Blythewood. You might probably still be getting some rain back behind this, but like the show is moved on out. The show right now is in Columbia and in Casey, and we do have a camera that we've been watching all morning long. This is the WeatherStem camera right now at William Bryce Stadium. Absolutely love this WeatherStem network and appreciate them allowing us to share it with you. 67 degrees right now in Columbia. 67 degrees. That's one of the highest temperature readings we have had all morning long, with winds out of the north at 20 miles an hour, gusting up to 23. Let's take a look at your lightning, because we certainly were seeing quite a bit of lightning over towards the Greensboro area. So what's it like right now in South Carolina? Well, we're getting a lot of cloud to cloud, but not a lot of cloud to ground. So probably maybe not as noticeable, but certainly still energy there in the storm system as we look at this William Bryce camera here from SETV and from WeatherStem. They do actually have other cameras. Clear Dot Charter School there in Richland County has a camera, and this is I think a little bit closer to the downtown area. I can do a little variety here. Go ahead and put that on the screen for you, and you can kind of see how it's bouncing around there, a little bit closer to the surface, a little bit closer to the ground. We'll look at a rooftop level here in downtown Columbia, and so this is for a severe thunderstorm warning. We don't have any tornado warnings to tell you about right now, but certainly watching for these gusty winds to come on through the Columbia area right now. If I switch my radar back over to velocity mode, which shows winds, and we do a quick little query here, we do have the benefit of being really, really close to the radar. And so you can see that we are getting radar estimated winds of at least 40 miles an hour in the Columbia area, probably even a little bit higher. As I push on in almost to street level, we're definitely seeing at least 50 mile per hour winds. I have no doubt in my mind that we're reaching in some areas that 60 mile per hour threshold to verify this severe thunderstorm warning. As we go along the line, which is kind of right along I-20 now, you can still see I'm easily finding winds of 50 miles an hour. As I make my way towards Camden, that number gets a little bit higher. I would say some of this is probably starting to get too high up into the atmosphere, because as I get further away from the radar in Columbia, we're also getting higher. And as we get higher, the winds will be greater. So are we really getting 80 mile per hour winds right now out towards Camden? I don't think so. And so that's certainly good news. Off to the south and the west of Columbia, still seeing severe thunderstorm warning winds. Again, near that kind of 60 mile per hour threshold. But let's stay in Columbia for a moment, because this is where we got the cameras. This is where we got the Metroplex. And so we probably have a good number of you guys watching along with us this morning. As we switch that back over to show us rain, we can put all these cameras a little bit bigger on the screen. So the two cameras on the left-hand side of your screen right now are WeatherStem cameras in Columbia. And you can kind of see in the top left at William Bryce Stadium how the visibility has dropped, certainly significantly from where it was just a few minutes ago. And we've been keeping a very close eye on that camera as we've kind of been going on through the morning. Let's see if we can get some weather observations. Again, 65 degrees now in Columbia, 65 degrees, 66 degrees as I hit refresh. So pretty much still getting that surge of warm, moist air here as the front kind of comes on through with winds gusting at least 35 miles an hour at the weather station near William Bryce. We saw with the radar that more or less matches up with what we're seeing in downtown Columbia. But again, we're watching for the threat that we could see gusty winds up to that 60 mile per hour damaging threshold. We did just get a new radar scan coming on through, and you can start to see the leading edge of this now is clearing the I-77 corridor, coming over towards US 76, coming down I-26. So let's see, where's St. Matthew? It's going to be coming your way here in the next 30 minutes or so. And also over Elgin and Lugoff, that is now like right on top of you. So you can kind of just see that leading edge there. Switching back over to velocity view, trying to see if anything is spinning. Not seeing anything imminently. So that is good news as we keep an eye on things. I'll leave these on the screen for just a moment and going to look at some of your comments. My friend in Pleasant Garden says it's bearing down on them at 50 miles per hour. Thanks, Al. Really windy now in Montgomery County. And a whole lot of you guys watching with us this morning. We really do appreciate that. A couple more comments. Kannapolis, pretty good rain coming on through and wind. My source is me looking outside. Hey, certainly. That was the best source. Just kind of reading through some of the comments here. Randy saying the storm brought them 8.4 inches in Clarksville, Tennessee yesterday and last night. I believe it, Randy. I really believe it. I hope you guys are doing well there. That is a lot of rain. Comment from earlier in Gaston County, closer to Charlotte area, where it was very windy at the time. And so questions about severe thunderstorm warning. Does that mean a tornado is likely? It's possible. They're keeping the tornado possible tag on a lot of this, they being the National Weather Service office, in case we were to get a brief spin up. We haven't had any tornado warnings, knock on wood, here in the Charlotte area this morning. And I'm sorry, or the Charlotte area across the Carolinas this morning. I certainly need to warm up on my coffee. So that is kind of good news. We hope it stays that way. I wonder how the temperature has changed in Columbia. It was 65 degrees, down to 64 now. So maybe not won't be a rapid change, but it's gonna cool on down. We are getting lightning right now, I think, on our William Bryce Camera Stadium there in Columbia. I mean, the visibility is null as that heavy rain comes on down through the Columbia area there. And you guys mind if I just leave you here for about, I don't know, how long does it take to walk to the coffee pot? 20 seconds? I'll be back with you in just a second. Since I walked to the coffee pot, I think I left my mic on. So yes, that was in fact the sound of me pouring coffee. Coffee. All right. I'm still just astounded by how fast this line of storms is moving. You know, I mean, all clear in North Carolina to the west of I-77. All clear I-85 corridor in upstate South Carolina. And the line's coming right now through Columbia. So we'll be able to clear most of the I-77 corridor here in not too long. We'll go ahead and throw the storm reports back on so we get some more localized data. And you can kind of see, again, where people are reporting things like lawn furniture being tossed around, most certainly. You can also see reports of rain, certainly. Not seeing anything right now in terms of damage. Now, this is interesting. Out in Sumter, we've got reports as of 8 o'clock of lawn furniture and things being tossed around, maybe small branches. Mind you, the line hasn't even made it to Sumter yet. But as some of you guys have been telling us all morning long, it's windy out ahead of the line arriving with the rain. I'm sure you know where this is going. There's a weather stem station in Sumter. 67 degrees. Winds gusting to 30. Sumter, you've got some of the warmest temperatures and gustiest winds we've seen all morning, and it's not even raining there yet. Not even raining there yet. And so by the time the line gets to you, I think you're going to have plenty to work with. And so we'll keep an eye on that as we go through the next few minutes. Now, I don't know if it's because I went inside to get coffee and I'm just thinking about it, or if it's the fact that the line has come on through, but I feel chillier now here in Charlotte. I'm pretty close to being outside than I did a short time ago. It is certainly no longer warming in South Charlotte. My Tempest station says it's 60 degrees, but I'm telling you, it's feeling colder. Like, I'm thinking about turning the space heater on, and that is not where we were an hour ago when we started this stream. But hey, it is in fact a cold front. Raining pretty bad right now in Greensboro. So yes, Greensboro, you're kind of the north side of my severe thunderstorm warning line, and it's going to be moving out in the next few minutes. Raining briefly heavy again right now over Winston-Salem, but the leading edge of this is going to prompt a new severe thunderstorm warning. I guarantee it to come out right now for the Raleigh-Durham area. And so that will be coming on through here imminently, because you can see the leading edge of this line right now is already right up against that yellow polygon. I wouldn't even be surprised if they didn't extend this further north and just give us all of North Carolina, because we're like one county short. National Weather Service in Raleigh, I'm sure, is drawing that up right now, because the National Weather Service in Raleigh is also watching their colleagues off to the south, where the severe thunderstorm warning in the I-95 corridor coming into Florence, Dillon, back over towards Wilmington, North Carolina. We've now had that severe thunderstorm warning kind of tacked on. I'm guessing this is the Wilmington office. Yeah, Wilmington jurisdiction. But regardless of jurisdiction, you can kind of see what's starting to happen is it's a little piecemeal just by the way the boundaries work within the National Weather Service jurisdiction, but this already kind of gives us the most eastern part of the line. So as this polygons move off to the east with the storm, I wouldn't be surprised if it all kind of just slides on over. So I'm sure meteorologists right now at the National Weather Service offices are typing that up. So let's just go ahead and assume Burlington, Hillsborough, Chapel Hill, Durham. There it is. I was going to say, assume you're under a severe thunderstorm warning. And they did. They took it all the way up to the North Carolina line with Virginia. So that makes, I think, communicating this a little bit easier. And I don't think it's a stretch of the imagination. So this latest warning, again, 3/4 inch size hail, 60 mile per hour winds. This goes until 9 o'clock. Then it will slide off to the east. Severe thunderstorm capable of producing these damaging winds. It was moving northeast at 55 miles an hour. That's why this thing is moving so fast. This thing is moving as fast as you drive when you drive legally. And it is just making its way across the state here. I am shocked that by 8 o'clock, this is how far east we are already. But hey, that actually probably lessens some of our severe weather threat, because we won't have all of that air in the east cooking for so long. You're still going to have some of it. As we saw in Sumter, it's warmer the further you get east. So we do now have that new severe thunderstorm warning. I'm sure this is all going to get drawn on out. As we switch on over to velocity, we're looking at the winds and looking for any sign of anything rotating. Coming back into a populated area now in North Carolina, we'll start to get better radar coverage. Certainly that's good news. All right. Fayetteville, I'm sure this is coming your way next. Sanford, Southern Pines, Aberdeen, you're kind of at the tail end of that warning. I will probably have another warning butt up against you here in just a moment. South Carolina, I'm still looking at winds. We're going to winds on your screen right now, watching for the sign of anything that could be rotating. I don't see anything rotating right now. But we are still seeing gusty winds of at least 60, 70 miles an hour. Columbia, this is about through for you. Orangeburg, coming your way next. Barnwell. Now, this is the first time I've paused in a moment just to kind of it's a little bit more squiggly down here. And why is that important? Well, because it's those squiggles where the tornado threat could occur. And so it's not too surprising. We're expecting to see closer to Georgia a little bit more instability for this to work with than we're getting across much of the Carolinas. I'm not terribly surprised to see the line is a little bit more squiggly there. We can switch on over to the Charleston radar, which is not in Charleston. Yeah, so kind of where the line gets a little bit squiggly. So the winds in green are coming towards the radar, and the winds in red are going away from the radar. In this case, it's more like the green is just kind of pushing in on the red. And so this is kind of a boundary here. And so we're just kind of watching as those two air masses come together, whether or not anything could spin on up. I mean, the good news is I don't think we have tornado warnings anywhere. Like anywhere. No, we don't. So the good news is the fact that this line's moving so quickly. If we can get it out of here sooner rather than later, that will lessen that threat for us. Probably been a moment since I showed you this. This is a look at the severe weather outlook for today. And so you can see that the slight risk in yellow down off to the south, that's the tier 2 out of 3. And so that's where we have a better chance of seeing some of the stronger severe weather, if I may use that vernacular. And then most of us are in a dark green marginal risk 1 out of 5. And most of us don't have to worry too much about tornadoes. This is the tornado threat in that green area, and it's just a baseline 2%. I hate to say just because it sounds like I'm diminishing it, but in terms of like the severity of how today's tornado threat stacks up against other days of tornado threats, it is kind of on the lesser end. It's a lower end tornado threat kind of day, but it's there nonetheless, and we're keeping a close eye on it. It's the winds. It's the winds that universally most of us in the Carolinas have to deal with. 5 to 15% chance of seeing damaging winds of at least 60 miles per hour. But I mean, wind is wind, right? So whether the wind is rotating in a column like with the tornado or just coming at you in a wall like we've been talking about with this cold front, that's enough to produce power outages and down trees. Again, better chance of seeing the damaging wind as you make your way further south. The hail map doesn't have anything on it, but we know we keep watching for 3/4 inch size hail, which does make sense now that I think about it. I mean, the other thing we got to count blessings on is the fact that the chance of seeing excessive flash flooding this morning is low from this storm, which is good for 2 reasons. One, we've had a lot of water over western North Carolina going back 5 months, of course, back to Helene. And we've already seen since Helene some of those temporary bridges, some of those temporary roadways have a hard time standing up to even moderate rain events. And so the fact that we don't have any sort of life-threatening flooding happening right now, that's good news because it's not the same for our neighbors off to the north and off to the west. So this right now is showing you on your screen the state of flooding river and creek streams across the area. Let me just widen out for a moment. Okay, so just so you can kind of get a grasp of it. Look at all of the orange and red, and purple is extreme. So purple is bad. Flooding stages off to our north, off to our west, off to our south. Yes, we do have some yellow. We do have some orange. But I mean, like, let's just push into Western North Carolina for a moment. And we had a comment in our YouTube chat about this, right? You know, you can see in Virginia, in Tennessee, we have areas that are seeing excessive and in some instances life-threatening flooding. I am so relieved right now to see, as far as I can tell, that the worst of it is a kind of a moderate flood threat. Pigeon River at Newport could get up to 7 feet. Not even to minor. Action stage, something you should definitely monitor, especially if you live in a kind of a low-lying area. But it is nowhere near high or historic like we're seeing in some other places, and that is a huge, huge relief. Am I talking to myself? Can you guys see these maps or no? All right, let's try this again. I thought that was screen sharing. Maybe it wasn't. At a certain point in the morning, I've just got too many Chrome tabs. Where did it go? Let's go. I don't know if you saw this initially or not. So here it is. We've got a lot of historic flooding happening in a lot of places right now. You can see them on your screen in orange and red. And for us here in the Carolinas, we are doing remarkably well this morning because there are places in Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee that saw historic life-threatening flooding with ongoing flash flood emergencies right now. Right now in the Carolinas, starting with Western North Carolina, you can see that Pigeon Forge sensor is our highest sensor in Western North Carolina. At Newport here, it's expected to rise to 7 feet, which gets us into the action stage, but doesn't even reach minor flood stage. So certainly something to watch if you live immediately on the along this section of the Pigeon River. But it's moderately or comparatively not as extreme and impactful as it is just across the border into Tennessee, into West Virginia, and into Virginia. That is a huge, huge relief. We do have some areas right now that have pushed into minor, almost into moderate, and that's associated with the rain that's coming on through. And so certainly we're still going to see some brief areas of flooding associated with the line coming on through. As we've been telling you right here on the stream this morning, that line has just kind of come through the Columbia area. So the Congaree River there at Carolina Eastman got as high as 119.6 feet, which is about half a foot needed to get us into the moderate. It's already coming back down. As I'm sure as we make our way down the river, you can see we're closer to where that crest is. This is Congaree River here at the National Park, about 17 feet into minor flood stage. Again, kind of already at its crest and coming on down. And so what I'm thankful for is, yes, certainly as the heavy rain comes on through, the water's got to run off someplace. But we seem to have enough capacity that while we're hitting minor, maybe moderate in some places, we're not getting well into moderate, well into major. And that was certainly going to be a concern of mine this morning. We're still seeing elevated water levels right now, Saluda River, back up to the north as you make your way closer to Greenwood. And that's just certainly dealing with a lot of the runoff, obviously, from the mountains. Well, obviously, you guys know this if you live along the river, but that water comes downstream. And so, we're watching right now as that runoff still happens. But I mean, I'm pretty happy with what I'm seeing in terms of capacity. As we start getting into kind of tidal situations and things closer out down to the coast, we'll watch for some of those water levels to rise as things come downstream. That line of severe storms right now is already kind of cleared some portions of central North Carolina. Greensboro, for instance, you're green. Charlotte, you're green. We'll watch the sensors here in Raleigh-Durham, but, things are looking, all things considered, pretty good. Pretty good. We are thankful for that. So here again, looking at your screen right now, showing you where some of the heaviest rain on is across the area. I would say this is just about done in Columbia in terms of that leading line. You can see the severe thunderstorm warning right now kind of clips the back of Columbia as they've drawn it off to the east. Certainly probably still raining, still gusty, but it's the leading edge of this where the wind threat would be, possibly any tornado threat. So let's start from the south this time. work our way up to the north. We can see right now this line is pushing on into Allendale, Hampton, Bamberg, Orangeburg in the next few minutes. Again, coming out of Columbia, coming into Sumter. Sumter in particular, we knew had some warm, moist air hanging out thanks to our weather stem sensor. And so 67 degrees right now, gusting up to 30. Winds coming out of the south still in Sumter. Watch for that to change. The severe thunderstorm warning now does include Florence, South Carolina, Cheraw, Dillon, and then making our way into North Carolina. This is coming down in Rockingham and in Hamlet along the I-73-74 corridor. Southern Pines here in the next few minutes. I wouldn't be surprised to see if this warning gets extended into Fayetteville in not too long. It's already been now extended into Durham and Chapel Hill. Raleigh, you're still not in it, but you will be soon. And Greensboro, High Point, and Winston-Salem, along with Charlotte and everyone else back off to the west, you've been cleared from the warning. Still seeing some lingering rain right now back across Greensboro, but you've been cleared from the warning. Diana says, I have a row of trees down on the side of my house, and one fell right on my car during a storm. The storm? Today? Tore lines down, and Duke Power came out and had to cut the tree, only that was on top of the lines. Okay, no, that was previous. Yeah, certainly. Winds will do that. I'm sorry that happened to you. Appreciate you sharing your story, helping us convey right now to other folks kind of the wind threat. Charlotte Douglas had winds 39 miles an hour. I'll take your word for it, Jay. That sounds about right, based on what we were seeing. Appreciate those comments. A couple more over here. Carrie says, past us, still raining, but you're right about the chilly air. Carrie, where are you? Can you give me a town or a city? But I appreciate you. You're somewhere to the west of the line. But yeah, it's just certainly kind of cool off on the back end of this, and that's kind of what we're expecting to see with this change all together. I'm going to pause here for just a moment, gather some of my ducks. It's 8:20. We're going for a little over an hour with you guys. Hopefully get a chance overnight to also watch our Carolina Weather Net, which streams on YouTube. It has real-time warnings, watches, radars. Even when I'm not around, we're testing out a new feature that it reads some of the warnings to you. And last night was our first rodeo with it, and I think it needs some fine-tuning. It was reading a lot. But appreciate, I know a lot of you guys were watching that overnight, so appreciate you doing that. We are only streaming this morning on YouTube. This is where we can do a lot of our additional streams outside of our weekly weather podcast on Wednesday night. Oh, Carrie says she's in Carrie says she's in Gaston County, so that cold air already kind of sweeping on through there in Gaston County, coming into Charlotte in the next few minutes. So yeah, I'm in Mecklenburg County, so I'm glad we're on the same page, and I'm glad to hear it wasn't just me going, I think it's getting colder. Certainly is, as this line of storms rise, that cold front coming on through. I can feel it in my carpal tunnel hand. But we're just with you this morning on YouTube. We would certainly go to Facebook and Twitch and all those other places if we were to get a tornado warning or some sort of like excessive thunderstorm warning. But my YouTube audience are my favorite. But I'm just going to post a link to Facebook and Twitter. Thanks. I don't want to leave them out, but you want to invite them to this party. This is where the party's at. Appreciate you guys being up with me this morning. There's a lot of things you can do on a Sunday morning. So. All right. Jay says, I've been following the event since it was previously in Mississippi River Valley, and it has surprised me that it has been that long between back then to now in the Carolinas. Okay. So it does certainly probably feel slower when you've been watching it across the whole region. I just feel like it wasn't that long ago that within the last 6 to 12 hours, where the weather models, again, we're trying to put this thing into Charlotte at 9 o'clock. It's coming to Raleigh. So, report of hail in Madison County. Officially says it's 53, but feels more like 40. Hail in Madison County? Are you sure about that? Like right now it's hailing? Or overnight? I don't follow TC. There's certainly nothing in Madison County now to be creating hail. Maybe overnight? You got a little hail. Yeah, parked cars under trees, certainly. Yeah, that could be a threat. All right, so man, this thing is flying. What would we say it was moving 55, 60 miles an hour? I mean, it's only It's only 74 miles from Charleston. It's going to be in Charleston in like hour and a half. I'm telling you, I think I got to turn the space heater on where I'm standing. It's getting chilly. It's getting chilly on the other side of this cold front, for those of you who haven't seen it yet. It's way over there. I don't think it's going to help me much. Oh, TC was hailing me, like saying, hey, I got you. I follow. I understand. Sorry. I'm on a very, very one-track mind this morning. All righty. Checking in with our weather service offices. We're getting some reports of trees down I-77 corridor, says Greenville Spartanburg Weather Service Office. So that could be, again, the I-77 corridor. Where were those trees down, I wonder? Oh, now this is interesting. Winds gusting 40, 50 miles per hour in a handful of sites behind the convective line. So still windy behind the line. That wasn't screen sharing, was it? No. Good. I wouldn't have expected it to be. Let's see. So we know the line is about out of Columbia. So let's look right now. First in Aiken, South Carolina. Line cleared there last hour or so ago. Still gusting at 15 in Aiken. Greenville, South Carolina. It is 52 degrees, gusting up to 20. So, yes, still gusty back behind this line of storms. What do we got in Columbia right now? Gusting to 47. Wowzers. That's windy. That's windy, Columbia. Yeah, Kay says it's clearing in Pickens and Easley, but clearly still gusty and windy. My fan heater seems to cost a lot of power. Sure does, Cal Rock. Electric heating is expensive and not the most efficient. Not my favorite form of heating. This line is coming into Sumter in the next few minutes. 67 degrees in Sumter right now. If it wasn't so moist and sticky, it would probably feel like a really nice, warm 67 degrees. Out ahead of the line there, wind still out of the south in Sumter, gusting up to 30. And so, I mean, that is like imminently going to change Sumter. Let's pull our Sumter camera up. We've been talking so much about Sumter this morning, and I don't know that we've shown Sumter yet. We're coming to you, Sumter. Because the line is approaching you. There it is. Oh, I have 2 Sumter cameras? I might have 2. Let's find out. We'll find out together. Goodbye, William Bryce Stadium, and hello, Sumter. Alice Drive Middle School. Good morning. Cloudy there right now. I definitely have 2 cameras in Sumter, because this one I think is going to be the skyline, more the city center. There it is. Yeah. Look how fast those clouds are moving. Those clouds are moving. This is the camera to watch. In the next few minutes, Sumter. The long-awaited rival of the line in Sumter is coming your way. 67, huh? Impressive. It's impressive. It is February, after all. Let's do this. Let's try this. Try that layout. All right. So Sumter, this line is 10 minutes out. Bishopville, it's on top of you right now. Hartsville, Cheraw, it's on top of you right now. Coming into Bennettsville, Darlington, Florence, Dillon, over the city of Rockingham in North Carolina, Laurinburg, Red Springs, Southern Pines. Interesting little gap. Did we not get another warning? Did we not get another warning in Fayetteville, Fort Bragg, Southern Pines, Carthage? Maybe we didn't. But winds there right now. Radar is still trying to put us close to that 60 mile per hour threshold. Of course, the radar is very high. So the higher the radar gets in that area, the more likely it is to get bigger numbers. Durham. Let's get a Durham camera on the screen. Let's not leave them out. Have I mentioned that I love my WeatherStem cameras? And if you think they've got a lot of cameras here, you should go see how many cameras they've got in Florida. I've got cameras all across the United States. All right. We're going to go not to Durham, but to Chapel Hill. I don't want to say close enough and anger everybody, but close enough. All right. There it is. Good morning, NC State. All right. So what do we have weather-wise right now at UNC? 62 degrees, winds out of the south at 10, gusting to 20. Plenty of cloud to cloud lightning. Some. No, actually, that lightning is really far away. A lot less lightning than we were seeing over Greensboro. Greensboro, you guys put on a light show, it seemed like. Kay says, glad I found your channel. No one really seems to cover South Carolina. Well, Kay, I'm glad you found us as well. You guys having fun talking about politics? It's too early in the morning, guys. I'd love a good snow, says Diane. Something that lasts on the ground for a few days. Well, Diane, depending on where you are, I'll have to get back to you about Wednesday. But intentionally not talking about Wednesday right now. Why? Because we've got something happening here. Wind is picking up in Virginia and some small hail. Yes, that certainly sounds plausible. Thanks for checking in from Virginia this morning. Quite a long line. Tiny Potato Life says, Charlotte is crazy. I don't know in what context you're referring to, but I'll say, sure. Sure. Do. Charlotte is crazy. I can say that, right? Because I live here. Guys, I got to tell you, man, I'm just so happy that we're not seeing more of the flooding threat here in the Carolinas. I'm not happy that they're seeing it elsewhere. Let me be clear. I'm not wishing flooding upon anybody else, but what I saw last night in Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia, and West Virginia, relieved that it is not spreading into the Carolinas. The storm is nothing compared to what it was last night into early morning. Yes, I think that complements what we were just saying. During yesterday, during daylight, during the evening hours, off to our west, it was worse. It was definitely worse. We're talking about it. We're in a tier 1 out of 5 today in terms of severe weather outlook. They were like a 3 out of 5. So yes, certainly. Rachel, are you just covering the Carolinas, or are you covering tornado warnings throughout the whole line of storms? Rachel, Carolinas is the short answer. I may occasionally look down, say, to Virginia or Georgia, but it's the Carolinas. So if you're watching from elsewhere, you're always welcome to hang out with us, but I don't want you to miss out on anything that might be happening closer to where you are or your area of interest, depending on what you're keeping an eye on. Do you have any information regarding Boiling Springs in Spartanburg, South Carolina? So, Kay, the line has come through Spartanburg. You still have some gusty winds, but the line is now pushing into areas east of there because it's coming into Durham right now. So, severe thunderstorm warning. Severe thunderstorm is in Durham. To your north, it's coming out of Roxborough. It's in Chapel Hill right now, and that's what I had pinned up on your screen as I was talking. Is the weather stream camera at NC State? I think we'll see it there imminently. It's going to be coming out of Pittsburgh and into Cary and Raleigh here in the next few minutes. Wouldn't be surprised to see that severe thunderstorm warning moved over to cover Raleigh. Again, we are watching that line right now, kind of moving out of Hamlet, Rockingham, coming into Southern Pines and Fayetteville. Oh, they did. They filled in the gap. Remember just a minute ago, we were like, there's a gap. They filled it in because everything inside those yellow polygons, that's the warning area for 60-mile-per-hour winds or greater. So now this does include the map still says Fort Liberty. Don't at me. Fayetteville, Southern Pines, done the I-95 corridor, essentially. They filled it in. We'll watch for them to draw the box over Raleigh. I'm sure it's coming. As we've been talking about in South Carolina, Florence, has it been 10 minutes? Sumter didn't make it to you? Oh, yeah, here it comes. I don't know why I've got Sumter and like Mulberry on the mind this morning, but I do. Because there you are. Good morning, Sumter. Rachel says, watching from Fayetteville. Oh, okay. Concerned about family and other areas of the slight rotation near Statesboro, Georgia. Absolutely makes sense. Glad you're with us this morning, Rachel. I don't want to guarantee that I'm going to focus a ton on Statesboro. It's not too terribly far away. I see something out of the corner of my eye, but I don't want to mislead you either. Kay says, thanks for answering my question on my children in Greenville. Absolutely. Yeah, the worst of it is past there. So here's Sumter. Again, we're watching for this to change in the next few moments, 5-ish minutes or so. Heavy rain, we moving on through. Heavy rain is out of Columbia now. Heavy rain is also out of St. Matthews, coming through Orangeburg as we speak, coming down to Santee, the town, and Manning and Somerton. Bamberg, you're about done. You're going to think of it probably right about now. Bowen, Mount Holly, coming your Holly Hill, coming your way in the next few minutes. Walterboro, you're not in a warning right now. Wouldn't be surprised if that gets extended because, as we were just talking about, we're expecting some of the weather to be a little bit stronger, a little bit more severe as we get a little bit further on south. Most of us in the Carolinas went out of 5 tier as we start making way into Georgia, like we were just talking about with Statesboro, kind of a tier 2 out of 5. Matter of fact, here it is, Statesboro. Here, Rachel. It's raining pretty good there right now. This is a perfect opportunity, and I'll start with Statesboro, to switch on over to velocity. because velocity is where we can look at the winds. The wind is primarily the threat for today. It's also where we can start to see any potential spin-ups. So we're still seeing 50, 60 mile per hour winds here in Georgia. And now I'm going to make my way back up the line, watching and looking for any areas where the wind is particularly strong. All of these areas with severe thunderstorm warnings, we could see 60 mile per hour damaging winds. Down here towards the south today is where I've seen the most in terms of little kinks in the line, where the line's not very straight and kind of dances around a little bit. If we were to see any sort of tornadic spin up, that's kind of where they would happen, is on kinks like that. Is it happening right here, right now? Doesn't look that way, but we will certainly keep an eye on that. Making our way now towards Bamberg, Orangeburg. That's actually a pretty big, look at this, like, ooh, pretty big bend in the line there. And I think you'll notice as we get further north, the line gets a little bit smoother. Smoother being kind of less severe. We've got more instability to work with further south. Let's switch radars. We're going one radar site at a time. It's going to probably mess up coloring for those of you trying to follow along with the coloring. Again, still very clearly seeing 50, 60, 70 mile per hour winds. Some of these, as you get further away from the radar site, the number is certainly going to see higher. The further you are from the radar site, the higher the radar beam is in the air. The higher the radar beam is in the air, the higher it is in the storm, the windier it gets. But that's interesting. Little wave things here coming out of Ashboro. I don't think we're close enough. How far out does the terminal radar go? Not that far. All right. Chapel Hill, how are we looking? Pretty calm on the camera, but I think the camera's misleading me. 62 in Chapel Hill right now, gusting to 22. But hey, it is what it is. I think this camera's just very, very well mounted. Starting to see some raindrops in Sumter. You're like my pick of the day, Sumter. Just like really honed in on you for some reason. All right. Click, 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 click. 8:45 in the morning here on this Sunday. So we do have severe thunderstorm warnings, North Carolina through South Carolina. Also have, and this is worth mentioning, just a cluster of wind reports and wind damage. Columbia back up towards Newberry. We'll take a look at that in just a second. Probably pull up another view that will actually show me even more of them. Lines holding together even better as you make your way further south you go. Essentially from I-26 south is where we start getting into a severe thunderstorm watch. Charleston, Hilton Head, Savannah. Watch means that form of severe weather is likely to occur over the next little bit. We don't have a watch further north. The threat is just not high enough. But, as you've been seeing, been strong enough to produce the National Weather Service issuing those severe thunderstorm warnings for 60 mile per hour winds. I've stepped off because I want my space here more pointed at me. Because I got to tell you guys, it gets chilly again on the other side of this line where I am in Charlotte. So, Rachel says, are you concerned for flooding with Cape Fear River? I got to tell you, Rachel, I would have said yes yesterday. So far, I'm really happy with what I'm seeing in terms of how the rivers have been behaving here in the Carolinas. I can show you. So here we go. Let's be. Here we go. So along the Cape Fear right now, the highest I've got is probably tidal down towards Wilmington, and it's barely eclipsing the action stage. Further upstream, Elizabethtown, still in the green. Fayetteville still in the green. So Lillington is still in the green. The Rivers are doing real great. You know, we're starting to see like PD River and Chiraw has certainly come up to minor flood stage, but it's already passed it back down into action. So we crested at like 33 feet. So we'll watch now, like PD down here at PD is maybe going to kind of flirt with moderate. Congaree is in moderate in some areas. And I'm not trying to disregard minor or moderate flood stage, but again, compared to what we have elsewhere in the United States right now, we're holding pretty well. And what is he talking about when he talks about how other parts of the United States are doing? I mean, they are at or surpassing record levels in West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee. I'm talking like evacuation of towns in some of those places. So I'm much relieved to see we're holding on. We'll, again, because as we start getting a little bit closer to the coast, the tides come into factor. We'll watch how that interacts. But for the most part, I'm happy. John says he's in Greenwood, and I'm doing a wonderful job. And you like watching the weather and what does keep up. So good work. Thank you. Thank you so much, John. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Jason's in Raleigh, starting to roll on through now. Yeah, so Raleigh certainly is. And it's not even 9 o'clock there. Jason, I don't know about you, but when I went to bed last night, I don't think I was expecting this line to be in Raleigh at or before 9 a.m. but it is. So Raleigh right now. Oh, man, did anybody clip my blunder? Please don't. I showed a picture of UNC Chapel Hill, and I think I said good morning, NC State. Shh. I'm owning it now. But actually at NC State in Raleigh, in Wake County, it's 66 degrees. Winds gusting at 28. So coming your way, Wake County. Coming your way. My coffee's cold. Can I blame it on that? Is that allowed? I don't know. Hey, but Raleigh does have a severe thunderstorm warning now, as we suspected. As Jason probably suspected too. So yes, Morrisville, Apex, Holly Springs. You're kind of at the leading line of this right now. Chapel Hill at UNC, it's calming down a bit. Raleigh is going to get into it here next. How did our friends in Sumter do before we get into Raleigh? Raleigh, don't worry. I'll cue you up again in a moment. Sumter was kind of just like my pick of the day for reasons I couldn't really explain. And the thick of it's coming over you right now. But you can see guys are holding up real well. Holding up well. All right, so Raleigh. We have cameras in Raleigh. We sure do. Which one of these cameras is going to get us the best picture? We have so many cameras in Raleigh. I love it. Yeah, we'll do this one. I'd like to thank NC State and WeatherStem for giving us all of these amazing cameras. There you go. That's NC State. And I mean it this time. What I like about this camera is you can see the ground, you can see where the human beings are, but you can see the cloud deck just booking it. Again, this line is moving at like 55, 60 miles an hour. So you can certainly kind of see the impacts of that. Severe thunderstorm warning now. Approaching the I-95 corridor, Henderson, Roanoke Rapids, Durham, coming out of Chapel Hill towards Raleigh. And that line kind of extends all the way down the I-95 corridor, Fayetteville, Southern Pines, Sanford, you're in it now, Bennettsville, Florence in South Carolina. Sumter, you're kind of like in between two broken parts of the line. That's interesting. And then as we make our way through the rest of South Carolina into Georgia, that line keeps going. I mean, the line is closest to the shore right now. Beaufort, Hilton Head, Savannah. You haven't seen the line yet, but the line's it's an hour from the coast. It's 57 miles. Not seeing much in terms of tornado warnings this morning. Let's keep it that way. All right, Raleigh. This camera should get a little bit more interesting here in the next few moments or so. While we wait, we talked to probably what feels like a light year ago now about the wind reports we were seeing over portions of the greater Columbia area. And what I want to show you now is all the storm reports that we have available to us as we wait for some of this to roll on towards our next camera. So we did briefly have a tornado warning. I think the only one in the Carolinas during the overnight hours, eclipse from northeast Georgia there into portions, say, of Anderson. Did we get to Clemson? A little shy of thereabout. You can see all of the yellow polygons or all the severe thunderstorm warnings we've had so far. But again, just over the last 24 hours, I mean, look at all those polygons. All those green ones are flash flood warnings. The reds are tornado warnings. The yellow are severe thunderstorm warnings. Guys, we are faring pretty well. I mean, every county in Alabama and Georgia, there's about is that a warning. And I know we all get drawn towards tornado warnings and we all get drawn towards flash flood warnings, or we all get drawn towards tornado and thunderstorm warnings. These flash flood warnings are bad. They are really bad. In Kentucky and Tennessee and Virginia and West Virginia and elsewhere. I'd be very curious to see what happens when the sun comes up there this morning. We get a better idea of what's going on. So wind damage. We have a cluster here. So from this morning, Lake Wateree Highway Patrol reported a tree down on I-77 at Heritage Road. Blair, South Carolina, dispatch reporting multiple trees down Mount Pleasant Road. Closer to Newberry, we got trees down on I-26. I wonder if we can see those if they're still there. More trees down in Newberry. Silver Street, South Carolina, trees down. South Carolina Department of Public Safety reporting tree blocking the roadway on SC 121 north of Johnston. And that is for Johnston, South Carolina. Closer to Aiken at the airport, reported a tree down on I-20. North South Carolina, I guess that is a place, 52 mile per hour wind gust at the North Air Force Auxiliary Airfield. So those are a lot of the weather reports from the greater Columbia area. I also saw some Faith, North Carolina, tree on a house. Tree on a house in Faith, North Carolina. Tree on a house also in Granite Quarry. Occupant trapped but not injured. Wow. Again, this is not a tornado threat today. This is a wind threat. Power lines down. Lexington, North Carolina. Greensboro here. 1,000 power outages from trees being down. Randleman, North Carolina, tree down. And I've also got a tree down in Coleridge, Highway 22. Wow. All right, so we have at least 2 trees down on a home. Occupant trapped there. It's kind of the crux of things. Pretty scary stuff. Pretty scary stuff. Happy to hear that there were no injuries reported with the trees being down. It's some pretty serious stuff. Let's get the Raleigh camera back up at NC State, because this line of storms is quickly bearing down on campus. Also still have the Sumter, South Carolina camera up in the bottom left. When do I think Ridgeville, Somerville? Hour and a half from now. This thing is moving way faster than I would have guessed yesterday. There is a entire Carolinas in a wind advisory. Sure enough, there is, Jay. I'm chuckling a little because we had a new experimental feature on our Carolina WeatherNet streamed overnight when I wasn't physically standing here, and it reads off bulletins. And man, it was reading them off county by county, I think, all night. We need to fine tune that. It was a lot. It was a lot. That bot needs a little adjustments. Sumter, 67 degrees. 67 degrees. That is balmy. That is balmy. All right. Coming up on the 9 o'clock hour. Time is just flying by. Much like this line is. Much like this line. I mean, again, I don't want to sound dismissive, because as we saw with some of those storm reports, the wind can bring down trees, and it can bring trees down onto power lines and homes. And that can certainly be a problem. Lucky to see we're not seeing anything really in terms of tornadoes or flooding, because this system has had quite the history. Quite the history of producing tornadoes and flooding across the United States. Because where we're at today, as we draw up on this 9 o'clock hour, is marginal threat tier 1 out of 5 for most of us. And the tornado threat is going to elevate here a little bit as we get into northeastern North Carolina. Also back South Carolina, as you get really close up into Georgia, about 2% chance of seeing a tornado today. The wind threat, though, universally for everybody is about 10%. Or so, and a lot of this has been verifying based on what we've been seeing so far in those storm reports. There's still probably more storm reports that need to be processed by the Weather Service. They're issuing a lot of warnings right now and then cleaning up the debris as they're being notified about it. How's Central Greensboro doing? So Greensboro didn't have a ton of storm reports in just yet, possibly more coming in. The line has already pushed through there. So the worst of the weather has already passed you in Greensboro. We will, again, also be watching to see how the rivers cope with all of this, but lo and behold, they're holding fairly well. Right now, we're just watching as this kind of comes in to a few more population areas. We've got Raleigh in the top left, Wake County, NC State there, because as you can see on radar, line is quickly approaching that area. We've got Sumter in the bottom left. The clouds just look, the cloud deck is quite amazing. And so let's switcheroo a few things and take radar full. I think it's been a minute since we kind of showed you everything's going on radar right now. And this is a line of severe storms that starts right there at the North Carolina and Virginia line and continues all the way further to the south. A lot of those flooding reports we were talking about were further to our north and to our west. The line not as severe there this morning, so we're not necessarily seeing severe thunderstorm warnings there right now. They kind of start right here in North Carolina, and the show continues off to the south. It's interesting as this line is getting closer to the east. We're starting to see some indication of the line not being necessarily just one coherent line, and we're starting to watch for little pockets of little spin-ups and things, which makes sense when you consider that 2% chance of a tornado threat in some areas. Raleigh, severe thunderstorm warning right now. We're watching. We got 1-inch tree limbs broken, shingles possibly blown off here down towards Holly Springs as the winds are certainly gusting. Matter of fact, right now at Wake County, Weather Sim reporting at NC State, winds gusting at 31 miles an hour. It's sustained at 10, so sustained now at 15. So certainly windy and gusty there with this line as it approaches the I-95 corridor off to the south. Laurinburg, Southern Pines, Sanford, you're in the thick of it. Fayetteville, you're up next, followed by Lumberton. In South Carolina, switching on to a different radar source so we can see what's going on down here in South Carolina. You can see right now it's over Florence. Do we have cameras in Florence? I feel like we might. I know we have traffic cameras in Florence. I'm going to just keep on moving. Let's see if we can stay with radars out ahead of the line. Orangeburg, it's come through. Coming down now to the I-26, I-95 corridor. Interchange there near St. George, Santee. Waltersboro, you're still not in a warning yet. Probably will be soon. We do have a severe thunderstorm warning that kind of stretches from Ridgeland, not quite in Savannah or Beaufort or Hilton Head yet. Probably will be fairly soon. All right, Raleigh. You're blowing around in my... Yeah, you're kind of there. Here comes the rain. My weather stem camera there. Let's probably start bouncing around here a little bit too. We'll leave that for a moment. Look at some of the comments. Weather woke me up a little bit earlier. Really bad winds and lightning. I think we're going to watch. We're going to really watch as this rolls on through Wake County here on our left. While it does that, makes Sumter a little bit bigger here as well. I think you can actually kind of see the leading edge of the clouds there in Sumter, if my eyes are not deceiving me. And I can't rule out that my eyes are not deceiving me, but I definitely think that is what I'm seeing there in Sumter. I mean, look at that line right across the screen. Good news is no one's really out on campus right now. It's a good day to stay. Good morning to stay inside, stay warm someplace. If you're heading to a church service or something this morning and can help your schedule by going later in the morning after the line has passed through, you probably find that a little bit more enjoyable. Just kind of hanging out here for a second with you. Checking on some things. As this line pushes on through, we'll start to get more storm reports back in. Again, the priority from the Weather Service that processes and verifies all of those is warnings first, storm reports second, which makes sense. Which makes a lot of sense. Darlington County, South Carolina is reporting trees down on Potato House Road, Darlington County. Oh, I think we have a new mesoscale discussion we can take a look at. We'll do that in just a second. Mesoscale discussion is kind of what comes out. It's like nerd speak. Kind of ahead of a line to kind of show you where the threat is going to be. Yeah, there you go. So maybe even saw it snap on the screen. It was off further to the west, and now it kind of extends all along the I-95 corridor from Fayetteville and Wilmington south through South Carolina. It's just the Weather Service saying that a threat of damaging wind gusts will continue this morning for parts of northern Florida, northeastward to southeast Georgia and the Carolinas. The latest radar imagery shows the line of storms from the eastern Florida Panhandle through the Carolinas. Ahead of that line, service dew points are at 60 degrees Fahrenheit and contributing to a weak instability. Weather forecast models show Cape less than 500 joules in most areas across the Atlantic coastal plains. In spite of this, front forcing is strong near the line, which will likely help the line to maintain strength over the next few hours with a strong low to the mid-level flow evident on radars. The line is expected to continue to produce isolated damaging wind gusts along the parts of the line that are most organized. Wind damage threat will likely persist into the mid to late morning hours as the line moves through the Atlantic coastal region. Some of that is very technical because it is intended for meteorologists and not necessarily the general public. It's the watches and the warnings that are intended for the general public. So I tried to translate some of that as we went on through. But again, overall, kind of weakish instability, but enough that we are seeing a strong line of strong to severe thunderstorms. Sumter, you can kind of see again, I think that's the leading edge there, pushing away from the town. And Raleigh, you're in that severe thunderstorm warning right now. You can see the rain has picked up here quite a bit. The visibility is decreasing as you look across the green. The buildings furthest from the camera are starting to get more difficult to see as the line certainly of heavy rain pushes across the NC State campus. And I'll switch my radar back over to Raleigh. And, it's coming down real good right now in Apex, Cary, Morrisville, essentially as you're on the west side of the Raleigh area. And then it'll come into downtown Raleigh, Garner, Knightsdale here in the next minute or two. Already, because of the way the line is angled, raining pretty good right now in Wake Forest, Youngsville, and Franklin back off to the north there, between I-85 and I-95. It's already pretty much cleared the I-85 corridor. But again, just kind of the angle we're at. Just now starting to really see it kick up. At NC State, we're at 65 degrees. Winds gusting up to 30. Winds still out of the south. So plenty of that warm, moist air, those dew points we were just talking about. The ability for the atmosphere to hold on to that moisture is pretty strong this morning, especially for February. The dew point 61 at NC State right now. Bethany says, I haven't heard from a friend in Trenton, Tennessee, and I haven't heard from him. I'm in Charleston. I haven't heard from him in 13 hours. Let me just double check myself on where Trenton, Tennessee is. We know we saw this line of storms come through that area yesterday ahead of today. So Trenton is in the western portion of Tennessee, kind of halfway between Nashville and Memphis for anybody playing along at home. Bethany, what I would say in an optimistic point of view is your friend is probably fine, much like we saw after Helene here in North Carolina. While we certainly saw damage with that storm and the like, there was a ton of people who went a long time without being able to reach family or friends, only because the communication was down. So it would be my intent to think the best this morning, which is just that, between power outages and communication outages. Some of those areas that experienced a lot of the storms yesterday probably are just kind of cut off right now. And so hopefully as the sun rises and crews are able to get back out and start reconnecting some of those things, hopefully you hear from your friend here not too long. Wanda says heavy rain right now in Fayetteville. And I think I saw the camera dancing around there a little bit at NC State. Again, we were seeing wind gusts of about 30. These cameras are mounted real well. And so I don't expect them to dance around except for when it gets really windy. Yeah, absolutely, Bethany. I'm glad we can help, and I hope you hear from them real soon. The cell towers is probably exactly where the limitation is right now, and we know in the last few months alone we've started to see this emergence of cellular-based technology, and it's pretty early on right now. We're starting to see it in more cell phones, where that if the cell towers go down here on the ground, they will have some sort of backup option to use satellites, maybe just for texting, maybe not for streaming or for phone calls. But, I think we'll see more of that over the coming months to year or so. New severe thunderstorm warning now has been expanded on out to show us a little bit more of what's going on here. We'll take this panel a little bit bigger for you. And so the severe thunderstorm warning now includes Wilson and Goldsboro, along with Mount Olive out towards LaGrange. This is in North Carolina. And this is as the line of storms is now pushing over what the map still says is Fort Liberty, and out of the Fayetteville area. This will come through that I-95 corridor and off to the east towards Clinton as we go through the next hour or so. We'll expect the same as we've been seeing as those severe thunderstorm polygons continue to get built off to the east as the line moves on through. Left-hand side of your screen right now is the NC State campus in Wake County. And they've got a whole fleet of WeatherStem cameras there that we're able to show you here this morning. And that will help us see exactly as some of this heavy rain moves on out of Cary and out of Morrisonville closer to Raleigh over the course of the next few minutes. While we wait, just so no one feels left out. Again, here's Fayetteville. Heavy rain now approaching. All clear, really, along the I-73, 74 corridor off to the east. It's not necessarily dry by any means. We can see, again, it's still raining right now in say, Charlotte, where I am. Much drier back on the other side of that. But we've been tracking kind of the leading edge, and that's where a lot of the energy is in that leading edge. We have a new lightning strike now near Florence. 2 new lightning strikes now near Florence. This is not far from the airport, kind of near US 52, US 76. Just trying to see some lightning where we hadn't yet been seeing any lightning. And again, I think in the next round or two of updates, we'll start to see these severe thunderstorm warnings get pushed even closer to coastal communities such as Charleston. The line is actually kind of already snuck out of its little containment. Let's just go ahead and assume that this section of I-95 should be under a severe thunderstorm warning, and I'm sure the Weather Service is typing that up right now. So Walterboro, this is an early heads up. You're going to get a severe thunderstorm warning, I guarantee it. And so go ahead and just make sure you're inside right now. This is kind of right on top of the I-26, I-95 interchange there. Switching on over to velocity, where we can watch to see if we see any signs of rotation. Not seeing anything right now, and that continues to be certainly good news. We hope it stays that way, but we have already seen and expect to see some more reports of damaging winds. Even though there's not tornadoes, it's enough to knock down some trees, this line, and we've seen that in places so far. Luckily, no reports of injuries so far. Hope it stays that way. But certainly power outages are a concern. And I think you're going to probably be able to see that strength of that wind firsthand here in the next moment or so, because on the left-hand side of your screen, NC State, Wake County, North Carolina here near Raleigh, they're going to get the line, and you're going to be able to see that. So if you're living off to the east and you haven't experienced this line yet, here's what it looks like as we watch this line of severe thunderstorms quickly approach the campus here. Right now, 65 degrees, wind still out of the southwest at 8 miles an hour, gusting at 30. That direction is important because it's that southerly flow that has been bringing in that warm, moist air. And what we've been seeing is as that line comes on through, the winds start to shift directions, the temperature comes on through and begins to drop as that line passes. But right now, still getting some of that southerly flow, moist air, dew points 60 degrees here in Wake County in Raleigh this morning. Winds now sustained at 20 miles an hour, gusting up to 30. Humidity 90%. So it is sticky and gross. And they are now just starting to measure some rainfall as this line approaches campus here. You know, you've already seen it in Durham. You've already seen it in Chapel Hill. Cary is now passing it off to Raleigh as it moves on through this area. You can also see, as I briefly put up radar, it is leaving behind kind of a string of wind damage reports, some of which we've read off to you. We already know that I think some of these back over here were down trees on homes. And so we'll watch for some of that to shift on off to the east, as the line certainly does this morning. And we'll get that camera back on the screen here for you so you can see exactly how all of that is playing on out. Taking a look at the rivers off screen. Rivers are still holding up pretty well here in the Carolinas. We are grateful for that. All right, we do have an update to tell you about right now, and that is with regards to the severe weather outlook. Not too different from the way that mesoscale discussion was reading that I was reading off to you a few minutes ago. We do have an update to where they think the bulk of the severe weather is going to happen today. And so as we watch right now, that heavy line moving into the Raleigh area, you can see that the National Weather Service has actually moved the Tier 2 out of 5, the slight risk, the yellow area, further north. What was essentially sitting at the Georgia-South Carolina line is now sitting at the North Carolina-South Carolina line. All of us in North Carolina from the I-77 corridor off to the east still remain in a marginal 1 out of 5. Essentially where that line is off to the east. Greensboro, you probably don't really even need to be in this anymore because as we can see, the line is in Raleigh. And that is because they've gone ahead and connected the two tornado threat areas and essentially brought a 2% chance of seeing a tornado all along the I-95 corridor from Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina into Georgia. Earlier this morning, we had kind of two discrete areas, one in like northeast North Carolina and one down towards Georgia. They've kind of just drawn a line and connected a 2% chance of seeing a tornado as this line continues to move off to the east. They've refined the wind threat a little bit. They kind of cut out the I-77 corridor off to the west. You're about done. But they have increased that chance of seeing damaging winds to be almost all of South Carolina along I-77 from Rock Hill to Columbia and even off towards Augusta. From there off to the east, there's kind of a 15 to 30% chance of seeing damaging winds. So that most closely correlates to why they've increased the chance of seeing severe weather, and thus in turn brought that slight risk Tier 2 out of 5 into South Carolina. This line is moving quite quickly, and so I can actually show you on the Futurecast, which is on the left-hand side of your screen right now, that as we go from real time to 1, 2, 3, 4 hours, it's out of South Carolina, 5-6 hours, it's out of North Carolina, which obviously extends a little bit further off to the east. I will point out that we are starting to see on the Futurecast a couple of discrete cells out ahead of the line. So if you're watching from eastern North Carolina and you're timing this line right now as it makes its way across Raleigh, don't be surprised if you start to see small, more discrete thunderstorms out ahead of this line. Right-hand side of your screen right now, this is Wake County, North Carolina. This is the campus of NC State. The visibility is coming down quite significantly as this this severe thunderstorm line moves through campus and moves across the Carolinas right now, you can see the trees are blowing around. We actually can see right where this camera is mounted. Winds are blowing at 15 miles an hour. We are dropping in temperature from 66 down to 64 in just the last minute or so. Winds are now gusting up to 40 miles an hour. That is the speed of your car on a secondary street. Winds are gusting, and that is certainly going to bring down power lines and trees. We've got about 1/3 of an inch of rain here just in the last, I don't even know how long, just a couple of minutes, because the rain rate is over 1/2 inch of rain per hour, and that's going to climb. This is not going to stay sustained at that strength for all that long. This line is moving pretty quickly. But as you can see right now on your screen, the other side of the green, I can't even really make out anymore. But there was a tree line way out there on the horizon, but it's about gone now. As this severe thunderstorm now moves through the Raleigh area, moving through the North Carolina state capital. Michael saying this line is also now just hitting Fayetteville, and that is certainly the case. I'll slide the radar on south while we leave the Raleigh camera up, and you can see what you see on the right in Raleigh is probably also being mirrored right now where Michael is in Fayetteville, as that line of severe storms now moves over Fort Bragg, Fayetteville area, Hope Mills, and that I-95 corridor. So, use that picture on the right where Raleigh is and kind of emulates what you're seeing elsewhere along this line right now. Looking again at weather observations still coming out of the south. In Raleigh, winds gusting near 40 miles an hour. And it is rainy, and it is windy, and it is gross, and blink, and it'll be done in just a few minutes. But this is kind of the transition with this cold front through colder weather back behind it. Out ahead of the line, Bethany says, already gusty here in Charleston, right by the airport. And that is certainly the case, as we've been seeing that the winds start to pick up even out ahead of the line. So the moisture is moving in behind the winds. But, this is just kind of a cold front that is going to usher in quite the weather shift as we head on through the rest of the week. I'm not even talking right now about the winter weather chances on Wednesday, but they're there because this cold front is going to usher in some colder Arctic air. So we will have a chance of seeing winter weather in a lot of the Carolinas come Wednesday. I'm not even going to begin to debate whether or not it's going to be snow and accumulating. That is for later. But do stay tuned, because once we get through this current severe weather threat, we can worry about later. But right now, we're going to worry about now. And so we do have this line of severe thunderstorms that stretches all along the I-95 corridor, North Carolina, South Carolina, hour on this Sunday morning, February the 16th. Kind of surveying things here. Like something just blew into the side of my house. I don't know what that sound was. All good. Okay, we've got Burke County, Georgia, on the other side of the line there. 2 trees down near Highway 56. Burke County, Georgia also has trees down on power lines on Highway 305. Continuing to get reports of wind damage in North Carolina, Lee County. You've got reports of wind damage near Broadway. I think we mentioned earlier there was trees down in Darlington County, North Carolina. We're expecting this line to be in Charleston at about 10:45 this morning. Charleston, South Carolina. This line will be to you about 10:45 this morning, if not even sooner, it feels like. If anything, I feel like this line is just moving faster. Faster, faster, faster. So we've got Raleigh there on the left-hand side of your screen. And it is right now moving through Raleigh. I can hear the wind and the rain picking up a little bit again. Here I am in Charlotte, but that is secondary to anything else going on. A little bit of moisture just kind of on the tail end of this system back over the I-77 corridor. Don't even worry about that. Heavy rain right now in Raleigh is coming in at a rainfall rate of 0.2 inches an hour, which is down from 0.6. We're looking at about a total of a third of an inch of rain, probably more once we get the final tally. The rain is moderate to heavy at times, but it is fast moving, and that is a bit of a saving grace. How long before it's to Wilmington? I'm trying to plan my drive to work. All right, so hang on. Wilmington. Slide, map, slide. So, Wilmington. This line right now is about 75 miles from you. Last check, the storm was moving at about 55 miles an hour. 55. So, call it the next hour, hour and a half, Wilmington. I'm breaking up. Am I still breaking up? Or no, I hope not. Absolutely. Alejandro, glad we can help keep you informed as we continue to watch. It's already calmed down in Raleigh, so you can see kind of how fast it moves on through. It's not a nice day, certainly on the back end of this, but you can see how it is already kind of blown on through Raleigh there. And now we'll move off to the east. At least where NC State is. We know the line itself is probably still making it through the eastern suburbs and making its way into Knightsdale. This line is pretty quickly approaching Savannah. Hilton Head, you're probably less than an hour out at this point. Yeah, you're like 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes. Interestingly enough, there is no warning from I-26 through Savannah. And I think that's correct. It doesn't look like we're quite at that 60 mile per hour wind threshold right now. A little below it, but we'll watch to see if it manages to regain any strength as we move on through. It's worth mentioning again, I-26 down to the south, you do have a severe thunderstorm watch that is in effect. It's also interesting to say that they have a watch there in Charleston, South Carolina to the south, and nowhere else in the Carolinas. And yet we have had a line of severe thunderstorm warnings plow through essentially all of North Carolina and South Carolina. So take that for what it is. Question in chat: riding out the storm, riding out the wind in a car or a small camper? There's a lot of particulars there, but I'm going to say in general, riding it out in a sturdy structure. I mean, depending on what type of camper we're talking about, the heavier thing would be better, along with the thing that'll have less wind underneath it. So if this is a camper that maybe has a semi-permanent foundation, or has some way of keeping the wind from getting up underneath it, that's fine too. Hey, I don't want to get too distracted, but remember how earlier I said I'm not going to talk about Wednesday? I'm still not going to talk about Wednesday. My computer at the bottom of the screen, which is Windows, and maybe your iPhone saying the same ridiculous thing, says 11 inches of snow on Wednesday. That's not going to happen. We're not going to get 11 inches of snow. Are we going to see some snow on Wednesday? Maybe. Are we going to see 11 inches? No. Sorry, rant over. Just noticed it at the bottom of my screen. I don't know what Windows is thinking. Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs is what it's thinking. Let's see if we got any new storm reports to talk about, because I feel like that helps us understand threat a bit when we look at storm reports. So we already know that these guys here are some of the most substantial reports we've seen so far. This is just south of Salisbury. Tree down on a house, Travis Lane near Granite Quarry. Occupant trapped, not injured. We tree down on a house on Short Street in Faith. Also have a cluster of storm reports in the give or take greater Columbia area. Trees down on Interstate I-26, I-20 from earlier. Off to the east, I think this one's relatively new. Darlington, South Carolina. Yeah, we did read this one in real time. Multiple trees down Darlington County along Potato House Road. Pinehurst. I don't think we've talked about Pinehurst. Very large tree down on Dr. Neal Road in Southern Pine. We've got some storm reports now just on the north side of Sanford. Tree down on Cotton Road. Also a tree down Amos Bridges Road. North of Pittsboro, 60-mile-per-hour wind gusts. Coleridge, tree down Highway 22. We had a question a while ago about Greensboro. We do have some reports of trees down and power outages across the area. Those are some of the latest we've got. Again, we'll expect more of those as the line continues to push off to the east. Looking at radar right now, the line is very skinny in the Savannah River Valley area between Charleston and Savannah. Don't even have a warning there. And the warnings in the I-95 corridor of South Carolina north of I-26, say Florence, is quite skinny. And that's because the Weather Service trimmed all of this away, and they haven't yet extended it off to the east. Will they? I don't know. I don't want to speak for them. And we no longer have a severe thunderstorm warning north of Raleigh. Matter of fact, Raleigh itself has kind of been trimmed out of this. So the storm is weakening a bit here in Wake Forest, Roanoke Rapids. We still do have a warning for Fayetteville, Goldsboro, and Wilson for the next 40 minutes. And I think that just kind of speaks to a little bit of what we were starting to see on Futurecast, which is that the line is going to get, we're going to start to see some more scattered storms out ahead of this. And so if I show you the latest model of the HRRR computer run, say that 3 times fast, you can start to see, let's go to this view. Zooms it in a little bit better. As we go from now through the next few hours, the line does start to break up a little bit, but that's a little bit where that tornado threat comes in. Tornadoes kind of like not to be bunched up against other things in a line. They like to kind of be off on their own as best they can. And so we'll kind of watch for some of those areas scattered out there a bit to see if we do manage to get any sort of spin up. Because again, we do now have this slight risk throughout much of South Carolina and a marginal risk for central and eastern North Carolina. And that's because of this 2% chance of seeing a tornado in that same area and a 15 to 30% chance of seeing damaging winds in South Carolina in that area, and about a 15% chance in North Carolina. Again, I-77 corridor, back off to the west, you're clear. So what we're going to do here in the next few minutes is I'm going to get ready to step aside, and we are going to take you back over to our Carolina Weather Net. This is a functionality that, even when I'm not standing here, continues to show you a lot of the same live radars, a lot of the same cameras that I've already been showing you. It will continue to show you any of those alerts that we're getting from the National Weather Service. And so we're going to take you back on over to that here in just a moment. We'll still be keeping an eye on things. As you've seen here this morning, YouTube is the place. We're here at the Carolina Weather Group. We like to keep a watchful eye on things. We have a weekly weather show where we talk about weather, science, and technology and more from the Carolinas each and every Wednesday night at 9 o'clock. And then we do severe weather updates whenever we can. And as you've seen here this morning already, we've had a pretty windy, rainy morning. Certainly some power outages for some folks. We hope everyone stays safe. We don't have any reports of injuries right now, and we hope it stays that way as we head on through the rest of the day. We do have that chance for seeing a couple more discrete storms pop on up, and so we hope you have multiple ways to stay informed when it comes to severe weather. And so one of those ways could certainly be our Carolina WeatherNet, which is coming up here in the next few minutes. We're doing some experimentation with the Carolina WeatherNet, trying to introduce some audio alerts. And so I'm going to play around with that here for the next few minutes as well, too. And so you might see me behind the scenes fine-tuning that a little bit. But right now, we are just continuing to watch this line of storms, and appreciate you being here with us. And I'm James Brierton in Charlotte, and we'll, again, our Carolina WeatherNet, you'll be transferred on over to that if you're not already on it. So you can continue to keep an eye on all of the storm activity, which will be gone the next few hours. This line is moving very, very quickly. So I hope you have a wonderful Sunday if I don't see you again. And if I do, then we'll talk again real soon.
Hammond, Hestertown, and southeastern